grim hat makes the witch happy. Let's talk about that personal power that I keep bringing up here or there. Brought up in my veil video, the idea of tapping into it, and the idea of also tapping into it with the darkness and the potential. And I think one of the things that has brought this up for me recently is as I turned away from my deities for a little bit, after giving so much devotional to them for 3 straight months, I have been kind of in a odd transition period with my magic. I didn't really quite know what spell to cast, what to do. It had been so long since I'd even cast anything towards myself. 3 months of a break apparently is enough time for me to feel a little wobbly. And so casting a spell right away just seemed a little bit out of my range. So I decided to instead take the time and meditate that gratitude, that energy, pull and all that energy like I had been doing, and instead of sending it off to a deity, to then just circle it back in on myself, to really focus on me, having gratitude for me, for my body, my soul, my potential, my mind. And along with that has come along in the month of September, the lovely Kellyanne Maddox does the Self-Love September, which I follow along with very intensely. And one of the things that she had mentioned in one of her videos, I will link up down below, whatever, is the idea of using a poppet for self-love. Now for me, poppet magic was always something very intriguing. I of course heard of it the first thing through the voodoo doll, but thinking of it in this context and this level of magic, and especially with the idea of like connecting it with my DNA and making the doll myself and then using it for me, was very interesting. Especially because for a long time I have felt this weird apprehension with using too much of my magic for just myself. And I fight that immediately with of course it's okay to use your magic for your damn self. It's your magic. But this whole idea of like, you know, the connotation of a little money magic, a little love magic, a little healing magic, for you is considered low magic, whereas the magic that is for understanding the universe, connected to the divine, is the high stuff, the big stuff. Now, even disagreeing with those connotations, they are there, and therefore at some point they had a little bit of an influence on me. And one of my major shadows that I'm attempting to overcome is a lot of time really understanding and leaning into the concept that me and how I feel and how I directing so much of my energy, not just some of my energy, not just like drizzling some water into my cup. I'm talking filling my damn cup up so that the overflow can help others, is hard for me. I can understand I have to put some attention to myself, but putting a majority of it even is still sometimes very difficult and feels exorbitantly like childish and self-centered in some ways. So it's a shadow I'm working on. And so the idea of using a poppet to do this was very interesting and something I think I'm going to do hopefully soon. And then I'm hoping to actually incorporate it as a huge part of my Samhain ritual eventually. I think that's where I think my Samhain ritual is going to go. And one of the reasons I think this connects so well for me is because as I have been dabbling with my deities and then considering things every Samhain, the first Samhain I connected to a very particular spirit. I consecrated a boned vessel. Actually, can we see him? No, he's up on the shelf over here. I have him pointed to watch over my bed at the moment, but consecrated with him, met up with him, helped him divine some things. A spirit I've been working with for quite a bit of time. And then the second one was slightly centered around him, a little separated, etc. and so forth. Much more of just a celebration of the time, of the darkness, of the unknown in general. And then this year I was like, you know, as I think and consider through the Samhains I've experienced so far, the Samhain I wish to experience, I don't have a huge connection with working with ancestors per se. Something about that type of energy and that works extremely well from other people. I've heard amazing things, but for me it's always been like meh. And Samhain in itself, the idea of giving devotion to ancestors, to those that came before, all for that. But it always feels like always this other, this other, this other, right? I'm always supposed to give devotion instead of to the ancestors. I then turned it toward the spirit. Instead of giving it to ancestors, and other times I give it to my deities more so. I call them in. I give even gratitude to the grand potential that is beyond me. It's always outside of, in some sense. Like this idea that you have to give to that. And since turning the gratitude in on myself, and since wondering possibly what all my deities were attempting to kind of drill into my head the last 3 months, because they all seem to have like a commonish thread, and I couldn't quite figure it out. Thought I had my finger on it with Persephone, nah, slipped away. Thought I had my finger on it with Loki, it seemed different. I thought maybe they're all 3 separate lessons possible, 3 separate deities, things happen. And eventually now I've come to this, because I have felt a lot more confident, a lot more powerful, and a lot more in my own skin than I have in a long, long time. And I think it is the reminder that as witches, we don't necessarily need literally any of this stuff. And by stuff, I'm not meaning the cauldron, the tarot cards, the candles even, the black hat. Because like that's stuff. I'm talking about the stuff as in the moon, as in the outside energies of the environment. I'm talking about the energy of your deities, your ancestors. So many times we are calling in so much of this other energy, and it helps. Definitely helps. We don't need it. We have energy all our own we can pull on. And that's something I forget on the regular. There's something I forget about the fact that, hey, I come as a powerhouse all my own. I come as this being of potential. I came from that primordial void. I am connected to it. That seat of pure potential and creation came through and made me as it made you. And through that making, there is a bond to it. There is this thread of untapped potential of where we could go, of what we could create, of what we could bring forth into the world, of what we could bring forth into many worlds. And I think that's something to... Who is calling me? 800 numbers. No. But our potential to tap into that, to understand that again, to remember that connection that we just have in us all the time. And I think that's another thing too, is as I was reading Damien Eccles' book, and then a couple of other books that I've, again, a lot of just dabbling here or there with a couple of 101 books that have been on my shelf for a while, I just haven't necessarily tapped into. And now that I've been reading them and rereading some of my favorites and getting back into connecting in with the energies of my hands and of my body and from me, it is this idea of, if I've been enacting magic, even small little magic like the money blessing I had mentioned in a video a few videos back, to very purposeful magic, so many times you're just moving through the world and you enact magic just through your pure intention. And how could you do that if you were not calling on everybody else? How could you do that just moving through something if you did not have a huge powerhouse within you already? I am always so fascinated by our need to pull in all these other energies, this need to place the power outside of us, this need to say this almost like a humbling, like it's humble, it is good, it is pious to admit that we don't have the power, to say that we are powerful, to say that we do have some semblance of the control, to say that we can tap into something and create, that we have the skill set to do such a thing. It seems so ego-filled and boldened, and so many times in spiritual circles, the idea of the ego is so demonized. But I think remembering that we have that power, coming back to it, using it on ourselves, using it to enact what we want into the world is important. having that ability to focus on my power and me, and just knowing that it's a freaking possibility, forgetting entitlement or should I do something or whatever, just knowing that it's an option that's there that I can grab onto, that in the quiet of my solitary craft there's no one to look over me and say unacceptable, no, no, no. That I don't need to call in ancestors, guides, deities, spirits, energies of the moon, the sun, my crystals, the very land I walk on. I don't need to call in anything. I do. It's fun to tap into those different energies, to feel into what they could bring to my magic. But my magic is my own. And just by moving through the world, I am an energetic powerhouse that can come in and make what I want to happen. And I want to kind of remind everyone of that. That what you decide to do can happen with just you. We are collaborating in this world, this 3D realm. I think it is sometimes hard for us to wrap our minds around the fact that if I have power, that doesn't mean that you don't have power. It's just that our power is then going to mix and twist. Power is not necessarily having power over something else. It's just the existence of the energy doesn't, it's not out of comparison. Sometimes it just, the power, the energy just exists, right? It cannot be created or destroyed. It just is. When I take away that idea of having power over others, having power to create or destroy, and just remembering that that energy, that power just sits in me. It is of me. It is me. That allows me to walk in the world with a lot more oomph. And I think, therefore, is enacting a lot more of my intention out into it, if that makes sense. Anyway, that is just a little bit of a rambly bumble of things that I've been exploring in my craft. Comment down below, how do you guys feel about personal power? And especially using just your oomph in spells, in ritual, etc. and so forth. Do you always feel the need to call in something else? Would that be a deity, a guide, a spirit, the energies of a crystal, what have you? Or are there many times where you do just do magic entirely just from you? Because I have found that when I think back, it is very rarely that I've just done it just of me without calling in something else. So all that in the comments down below. This is Youtuber, so I make new videos every single day, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.